Coming up are 8 stellar wines paired with 5 tasty dishes with African roots. These dishes are savory, creamy, hearty, and sweet. You'll love these diasporic deep cut recipes, inspired by Jessica Harris. Pair this kind of food with good wine, and what you have is a family meal. Welcome to Family Meal, a virtual wine tasting party. Every month I cook a 4-course meal and pair it with some fun wines. Then you get to watch as my friends tell me what they think about it all. In this series, we've prepared dishes with clear African roots, such as okra salad, black-eyed pea salad, and peanut soup. By the way, you can click the links to see those recipes. But today, we're digging into the deep cuts, looking at the African roots of 5 dishes people eat in North America, and we're pairing them with rosé. The recipes are inspired by Jessica Harris's 1989 cookbook, Iron Pots and Wooden Spoons, which traces the ways African cuisine has migrated to the New World and has been transformed here. I'm calling this episode Deep Cuts partly because of Harris herself. She's perhaps the black foodie's foodie, the foodie that other foodies look up to. She's not as well known as B. Smith from 2 episodes ago, but her recipes come with stories as tasty as the food you can make with them. You can't beat that. These are the deep cuts of black food, perhaps. The breadth of dishes she claims under the umbrella of African cuisine, with scholarly acumen by the way, includes everything from ackee fruit to Zwazo chilies, from cold weather saffron to tropical mango. Yes, the Black Celebration Plate dishes are covered in this book, but they sit with 200 other recipes that are also gems, even if less well known. Harris is an English professor at Queens College in New York and has written 12 cookbooks. She's written about everything from spicy food to rum drinks. And she has a podcast that's a great listen. Pour yourself a glass of wine and settle in. Her voice is poised and pleasant, and her stories evoke the breath and heartbeat of the places she explores. The very first episode is about New Orleans, which happens to be my grandmother's city of birth. One of the dishes I'm making today is inspired by that city and by Dr. Harris's take on it, but more on that later. Harris's mother took young Jessica to West Africa for the first time in 1972. There she encountered yassa chicken, a dish that's familiar even though she was far from home. Looking for connections like these is at the center of her writing. She's looking for ways to connect me to the food in the books, in the same way yassa chicken connected her to Africa. So that's what I looked for in the recipes in this book, ones that I felt connected to, had experienced in some way. Then I added my spin to these dishes. We'll see if it worked. Here's what's on the menu this month. I think of hush puppies not as a celebration food, but as a special occasion food. They're the little bite you have on any Friday when you need a treat. I hope my friends think they're a treat. These crispy fritters are stuffed with cheese and herbs so that they have that classic crispy outside, creamy inside combination that everyone loves. The wines for this pairing are 2 Crémant d'Alsace from the north of France. These are both very light wines, sparkling rosé Pinot Noir. Anything deviled is super tasty. Deviled eggs, deviled crab, even deviled nuts make my mouth water. Course 2 today is deviled ham tea sandwiches. They're creamy, spicy, porky, and even a little bit sweet. I've paired 2 still rosés from northern Italy with this course. They're both Corvina dominant wines. Corvina is one of my favorite grapes. I think they'll be nice with the creaminess of the ham salad. Course 3 is a hearty stew. This is a mashup dish with influences from Accra to New Orleans to my backyard. It has lots of greens, a savory broth, some dumplings to soak up the sauce, and a mix of duck and seafood. I'm excited to try it. The stew will be served with 2 tavel from the Rhône region in France, just across from Châteauneuf-du-Pape. They're Grenache and Cinsault, lighter grapes, but the grapes are treated in a way that makes for a pretty hefty rosé, so I'm hoping that goes well with the stew. The sweet course is a praline. Well, can you call it a praline if there's no pecan? In any event, these pralines have mango leather, Melagetta peppercorn, and pumpkin seeds. We'll see what the eaters think about that. 2 Sweet Bricchetto finish off the tasting this month. They're both from Piemonte, Italy. This is a sweet sparkling wine that I'm expecting to taste like flowers and candy, so it should pair well with the candied sugar dessert I'm serving. I'm very excited to share these heritage dishes with you and my friends, so keep watching. I don't know about you, but hush puppies are usually served with fish in my experience, and there's a history there. That pairing is about 120 years old in the Carolinas, according to some. We're having fish in course 3. I'll give the eaters enough to have some for both courses. But why not enjoy these little bites as a starter with some bubbly? That's what we're doing today. They're easy enough to get started. Combine the dry and sifted ingredients in a large bowl. Make sure that they're mixed thoroughly. In another bowl, combine the egg and buttermilk. You want it to be as close to one solid color as possible, with no discernible yolk left. As you might have guessed, now we put the wet and dry stuff together. It's going to be a gloopy batter, a bit thicker than a pancake batter, and gritty from the cornmeal. While the dough is resting, dice the cheese into even bits. Then start warming up the cheese until it just begins to get soft. Now make a dough ball with about a teaspoon of dough. Then flatten that dough ball with the bottom of a glass. Then put some cheese and a few herbs in the center and wrap the dough around the stuffing. The final step is frying. Put some oil in a skillet and heat it to about 375 degrees. That's hot enough for a popcorn kernel to pop. Then fry each dough ball until brown and crispy. Let the fritters drain on a paper towel. Now they're ready to serve. I put this on a plate with some lemon wedges and a few herbs on top. Don't you want to dig into those? I've also got a freshly made hot sauce to go with them. It's spicy and vinegary. It's also got some papaya juice and herbs for freshness. If you want that recipe, it's on the blog too. So the fritters are being served with Cremant d'Alsace from the north of France. Wines from wine regions with cool summer nights like this tend to be delicate and crisp. This is also a fully sparkling wine. They're made from Pinot Noir, a thin-skinned grape, so they don't have a lot of drying tannin in the mouth. To make this wine, whole bunches of grapes, skins, stems, seeds, and all, are just lightly pressed. The light touch with the press also makes for a lighter juice. These wines have some color, but they're still light with a refreshing, bright raspberry flavor. Let's see if my friends think this bubbly rosé goes well with these crispy fritters.
I like it. I keep going back.
No, it's kind of, it's good. It has a really good flavor.
I'm sweating a little bit. So I don't know which one I like better.
They're very similar to me.
I like the Albrecht.
I like Albrecht also.
I like them both, really.
I like the and.
So I'm convinced hush puppies are definitely an appetizer-worthy dish, made all the better with a bit of bubbly. So one theory is that deviled food is just red food. Normally that red comes from paprika. This recipe has paprika, but also onion, pear, and pine nuts. While the nuts and fruit add crunch, the ham has to be spreadable, so process the ham into a chunky puree in a food processor. From there, add the remaining ingredients: diced pear, pine nuts, mayonnaise, relish, garlic powder, and of course paprika. Mix that well to combine everything. Now you're ready to make the sandwich. This is flax bread that I made. Fresh bread is the perk of being an eater, but the recipe is also on the blog. I'm just going to cut this in half. Add a bit of horseradish spread to each side of the bread. Then add a few leaves of basil to cover the lower side of the bread. The ham spread is next. About 2 tablespoons will cover the bread. All you need now is the top half. I'm going to cut this in half, but you can cut these sandwiches into thirds or even quarters. Yes, you can buy ham spread in a little tin, but that tastes like it came out of a little tin. This spread is smoky and salty and has a light sweetness from the pear and crunch from the pine nuts. Add fresh basil and fresh bread, and you have a sandwich worthy of a wine party. The wines for these are 2 Corvina blends. When people say fresh wine, the first grape I think of is Corvina. It's got lip-smacking tartness and fresh cherry for days. The rosé we're having will be lighter than a red Corvina, which is perfect for a light and creamy ham salad. Both wines are from Verona in northern Italy. This region's weather is influenced by the nearby Alps, but also the large bodies of water nearby. It's cool there, but warmer than Alsace, so these wines will be fuller tasting, a step up from the previous course. They're a very light pink and have a fresh flavor to match, strawberries and citrus. I'm a Corvina fan, but what about today's eaters? Let's see.
Very smooth Pasqua.
Yeah.
They're both really interesting.
Lovely.
I know it's called deviled ham, but that was pretty angelic in my opinion, and paired well with the fruity rosé. I think these wines were among the faves too. This recipe was inspired by green gumbo, a New Orleans classic, but since this episode is about connecting New World foods to Africa, we're going back a bit. The mother dish for gumbo is dishes like canto mire, a stew of pureed greens and other vegetables. It's usually served with fufu, a starchy dumpling. I had canto mire in Ghana almost 10 years ago now, but I still remember how savory and satisfying it was. That's the kind of flavor I'm going for today. Today, I'm making a stew of peppers and onions and serving it with greens from the garden and some yuca fufu. I'm using the kale, collards, and sweet potato leaves that are growing in the back. I don't like chomping down on a tough stem, so I'm cutting those out. Those get cooked for 3 to 4 hours on low heat in a crock. You don't need meat or even fat in these. I'm just adding some veggie bouillon and a lot of vinegar. The stew is also simple. It's pureed onions and peppers. The puree is cooked down with some palm oil and a Creole-inspired spice blend. Start out with your pot on high heat so the oil gets hot and fries things a bit, and let it finish up at a simmer. Next is the duck. I'm using breasts today. Make a crosshatch on the skin and season the duck well. Sear the breasts, skin side down for 10 minutes to get the skin crisp. Then finish these in the oven at 400 for about 10 minutes until cooked. The last component is the seafood. This is frozen mixed seafood that just goes in hot water for about 5 minutes until the shrimp shells turn pink and the bivalves open. If you're having stew, you must have fufu. This is fermented water fufu. To start, this frozen yuca gets soaked for 4 days. This softens and ferments it. On day 4, puree it up. Add water until you have a paste. Get it as smooth as you can. Now cook the paste until it becomes a translucent dough. You can adjust the thickness by adding water. Mine was still a bit chunky, so I strained it in a sieve. It made for a really silky fufu. But it's probably too thin to eat with your hands. Traditionally, fufu is used to pick up bits of stew with your hands, but all my friends are fork users, so I'm okay. Now it's time to plate. Put a bit of stew in the middle and surround it with the accompaniments. That looks like something to dig into, right? There's so many flavors in this. Sour, savory, herby, and meaty. It's all here. I'm serving this stew with 2 Tavel from the Rhône region of France. I love Rhône grapes. They're some of my faves. These rosés are made from Grenache and Cinsault, 2 grapes common to the area. But these aren't the light rosés you might be used to. One wine was almost like drinking brandy, even though these wines aren't fortified. There's grapefruit and flowers and a hint of vanilla. These are intense wines with lots of oak and an intense salmon color. One is even a bit tawny, like it's aged, even though it's just 3 years old. I wonder what the panel will say about these unique wines.
That tastes, it's a little syrupy to me, that one.
The Gruyere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels kind of thick on the tongue, but I like the flavor.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's slightly darker. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But...
For me, these Tavel were like reading a good book of poetry. You have to sit and think for a moment after each poem. What did I just read? What did that mean? But not everyone likes poetry, unless you have food with it. Can you call something a praline if there's no pecan? Oh well, I'm going for it anyway. I'm making candy today. It's got dried papaya, pumpkin seeds, and Melagetta peppercorns in it. I picked these ingredients because I thought they'd taste nice together. Tropical sweetness from the papaya, citrus and herbs from the pepper, and crunch from the seeds. A mix of flavors and textures. But these ingredients to me represent the diaspora of African-derived people's food. You don't get more American than the pumpkin. Melagetta pepper is an important spice in a lot of West African cooking. And papaya is now found all over the tropics, as are black people. And all that is wrapped in a praline. You can't get more diasporic than that. To make the praline, add sugar, butter, brown sugar, and milk to a pot. Heat it over medium heat to 200 degrees. You can use a candy thermometer to verify the temp. Now add half of the mix-ins. By the way, the papaya leather was dried in a food dehydrator at 125 degrees for 6 hours. But you can also dry them in the sun covered with a cloth or in the oven on the lowest setting for 12 hours. After the liquid candy gets to 240 degrees, take it off the heat and pour it onto a pan to let it cool. I'm going to add the rest of my mix-ins now. After it cools enough to handle it, shape it however you like. I'm making cubes using a silicone ice tray. That was easy, wasn't it? And look how pretty that looks, with a bit of clotted cream on top and a piece of papaya leather, a dainty diasporic dessert if there ever was one. By the way, the clotted cream recipe is on the blog too. The final wines for today are 2 Brichetto from the Piemonte region of Italy, about 3 hours southeast of the Rhône Valley, where our last wines came from. They're sweet and sparkling wines, made from the Brichetto grape. They're almost a fluorescent pink in color. And boy, do they give you strawberry, and just a hint of citrusy acid. They're sweet enough to stand up to the candy, which is perfect, but they're light-bodied wines, so not too syrupy. Let's see if the eaters are feeling the Brichetto.
Ooh, this one's very sweet, the Stella. I think I like Orsola with this dessert.
Okay.
I think those were some fun wines to end our rosé journey this month. So there you have it. I made 5 dishes inspired by Jessica Harris's 1989 cookbook, Iron Pots and Wooden Spoons. I made stuffed cornmeal fritters, deviled ham salad sandwiches, a vegetable stew with greens, duck, and seafood, fermented water fufu, and a papaya and peppercorn praline. Harris is a writer first and foremost. She wants to tell you the story of food and about how certain crops and animals become important ingredients and how those ingredients become important dishes. I can use her stories to fill out my own, like having hush puppies at a Friday night fish fry as a kid, having cantomire in Accra 10 years ago, and now straining water fufu by hand in 80-degree weather. The texture was worth it, by the way. In any event, Harris is talking about heritage in her book. These recipes are a cultural inheritance. They're an inheritance for me personally as a black person, but also to everyone in America. This country wouldn't be as tasty a place without hush puppies, gumbo, and pralines, don't you think? There's culture in everything humans do and make, but the culture around food, around nourishment, seems particularly important to me. These dishes don't just fill the belly, they fill an afternoon with good cheer, good conversation, and good flavors. One of today's eaters said the stew today was the best dish of all episodes so far. I'll take it. So if there's any dish you want to try, start with that one. It's a great representative of the culture, and it's super tasty. And it's healthy. It's mostly vegetables with a few pieces of meat for interest. It's an herbaceous, veggie-forward dish that's easy to make. And if you're used to canned spreadable ham, this recipe is a different dish altogether. It's more complex, but not complicated to make. As for the wines, I really enjoyed Rosé Month. We started in the far north in Alsace and ended up as far south as the Piemonte. On our north to south journey, we stopped in Bardolino for a Chiaretto. It was delicious and highly recommended. A lot of the eaters enjoyed the Pasqua 11. It's fruity and fresh, but complex enough to go with a ham sandwich. The other wine that was a revelation for me was the Tavo. The Priore Montezarge was truly stellar. I think the bottle we had was maybe a bit oxidized, but that's okay. Tavos can age from what I understand. And if that's what they taste like when they age, more please. I hope you'll join us in late November for the next episode. It'll be Thanksgiving, turkey season. So this next episode will be about what I'm giving thanks for after 8 episodes of this project. Over these past 8 months, we've explored 57 wines, 44 dishes, and 8 interesting cooks. That's definitely something to give thanks for. I'll be talking about all the stuff I wish I had time to say in past episodes but didn't get to. I'll also be talking about what I've heard from you so far. Thanks for watching. Bye.